Hi flower friends, it is Sarah Lobu here at Main Street Florist, and this month I've got a beautiful bouquet of flowers for you to walk you through for your frequent flower tutorial. So excited you're here. I'm so excited you have the subscription, and let's get started. So you're gonna wanna grab a vase that you can arrange in today, something with sort of a small to medium mouth. So the one I have here, I would say is about 3.5, 4-inch opening. The smaller the mouth of the vase, the easier it's going to be for your stems to stay in place. Now, if you've got larger stems or you have a lot of stems, you're going to want a larger mouth of that vase. What we're working with today, I would probably say this 4-inch opening is the largest opening you would want for the tutorial. All right, so I've got clean water in here. I have already used a pack of flower food and added it into the water. That's gonna help keep bacteria away and feed your flowers just a little bit to help them continue to open. Let's talk about what we have today. So in greenery, we have Pittosporum, but this is mini Variegated Pittosporum. We get regular Pittosporum in often, and if you have ever traveled to any southern state, specifically Florida, I feel like you see Pittosporum growing as hedges all over the place. And so we are not that lucky here in the Midwest that it's not something that grows here often, but we certainly can get it in. And this, like I said, is a different variety called the mini Pittosporum. I love it, A, for the variegation, but also it just is a little bit lighter feeling and it's going to look really beautiful in our bouquet to kind of give us a nice kind of garden feel. You're also working with some gorgeous Delphinium. So depending on your bouquet, you may have different shades of Delphinium. When we ordered this in, we actually got white, 2 or 3 shades of blue, and then really a deep purple too that's gorgeous. So your colors may vary. Delphinium blooms from the bottom up. So you can see that these blooms are a little bit more open, where these are a little bit tighter. So they've started to open here. They're going to continue to open. Typically, the very last buds never really mature and open, but we can still appreciate them all the same. And if you have any broken ones at the bottom, that's okay. We can just go ahead and take it off. As your flowers mature, these blooms will fade first, so you can remove those and still enjoy the rest of the stem. And then we also have Cremones. Cremones are a favorite here in the shop just because they are long lasting. They are a good bang for your buck. They open wide and look a lot like sort of the shaggy blooms that are popular like the dahlias. So Cremones have a similar look. They all are going to have hairnets on them, or sometimes we refer to them as bras because they give them added support. What you want to do is grab them from the bottom and gently pull them off, and then your flower will start to slowly open. I would recommend doing this before you start arranging so you have just a few minutes for your flowers to start to open. You never want to just take this sleeve and pull from the top. Chances are if you do that, you will break the head. So make sure you're taking from the bottom and pulling it up and over. And then last, we've got some billy balls, or Craspedia is their real name. Now these are dried. These have been dried and they've also been tinted to have a lasting color. Typically, Craspedia comes in a yellow shade. As they dry, they'll keep that yellow, but it turns from a bright yellow to a little bit of a mustard yellow. These were actually painted at the farm before they even reached us. So you may have varying colors of these as well. I think we had pink and orange. I think the plan is most of you are getting pink though. So what's fun about these is you can use them in your arrangement, but you can certainly pull them out and continue to let them be a dried flower and put them anywhere in your home and they'll last all the same. I'm going to start by opening up all of these Cremones, and I'm also going to remove any of this lower foliage. So with Cremones, which they're actually a chrysanthemum, a lot of chrysanthemum, whether it's a daisy or a palm or a disc bud like this, all of their foliage looks very similar. It typically starts to wilt and look sad long before the bloom does. So we remove any of it. We always want to remove any foliage that would be below the water line of your vase, but because we know these blooms are going to last so long, I just like to remove all of it so that your bouquet is going to look beautiful for weeks to come. Weeks. These guys will last weeks. and you don't have to worry about removing the sad looking leaves later. So we have all of our flowers cleaned and prepped and ready to go for our arrangement. We are going to start with the greenery, so this Variegated Pittosporum. Now, depending on what your stems look like, you can choose to either leave them together as a stem, or you can cut them apart. This one's got longer laterals. I think I'm going to go ahead and cut it apart. And I'm going to start to place those stems down into my vase. As I place my stems, I want to cross the stems. We do this to create a grid underneath the water there that as you continue to add stems to it, they're going to be held in place. So if you've ever tried arranging at home and you're just sort of placing everything on the outside and not doing that grid, you'll notice that everything wants to fall to the sides. Creating that grid is going to help you keep things in place. This stem I think I might keep together. I'm just going to give it a little bit of a trim. We're going to place it at the center. It's not going to stay right away, but it will by the time we're done. Going to remove any leaves that would hit that water. And go ahead and place them in at the angle. So with these 3 stems, I sort of divided it into 4 corners, and then to create that grid, and then 1 in the center. It's not going to stay right now. That's okay. All right. Next up, I want to get the height of my vase, and my tall Delphinium are my linears. I want to get a good idea. So typically when you are arranging, to make it feel balanced, you want your arrangement to be twice to 2.5 the height of a vase. So here's your vase. That's 1, that's 2. We at least want to go here, but 2.5 might make it feel a little bit more balanced. So that's about the height of the arrangement I want mine to be. You can go whatever route you want to be. Now I know this is not going to stay exactly where I want it, but at least I'm starting to get the shape of my arrangement and work with that height. So I went ahead and put my other 2 pieces of Delphinium in. They are starting to help hold those middle pieces in place. Now I've got 2 of the lavender and 3 of sort of this golden color of the Cremones. Typically, did you see that? Typically, we would choose to sort of color block where we might do all of the same color. We wanted to show you a little bit of the varieties of different options, so we kind of gave you a few of each. It is harder to work in 2s than it is in 3s when it comes to floral design or any sort of design where you have mixing colors. Reason being is we naturally want to look at the arrangement and see what we recognize. So if you have 2 of something, you tend to recognize them as eyeballs. So that is why typically working in odd numbers will make things feel a little bit more balanced. If they don't look like eyeballs, they look like antennas. So we're going to be intentional on how we place these 2. That when they go into the arrangement, we want to maybe stagger them so that your brain is not reading them as eyeballs. I'm going to put those in close to the last. I'm going to go ahead and evenly space out my bronze Cremones at the other angles, sort of opposite of my Delphinium. And I'm playing with height and just sort of experimenting with having them be different heights. That's going to make your arrangement look more natural than if everything happens to land at the same height. Often this is the point I get to the arrangement when I do these tutorials on camera. I don't practice a lot ahead of time. I just sort of have an idea. Here's what I often do. I tend to evenly disperse things because it's easier to understand when explaining the arrangement. But honestly, the way I would prefer the arrangement is to group things. I feel like it makes a stronger presentation and it's just easier on the eye. So even though we've started here, I'm going to kind of rearrange a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and arrange my Delphinium all grouped together. Now, if you're doing something asymmetrical, you want to arrange left to right. Because of how this is filmed, it may be the opposite for you, but naturally we read from left to right. So just like how our eyes want to recognize eyeballs and what seems familiar, also how we read familiar from left to right, that's how you want to read an arrangement. So typically the highest point of your arrangement should be on the left and the lowest point on the right. So what I've done now is I've grouped my Delphinium on the left and I've grouped my Cremones lower on the right. Now I'm going to go in with the purple. I'm also grouping them together, but again, I'm staggering them so they do not look like eyeballs. All right, now I'm gonna go in with my Craspedia, grouping them as well. I'm gonna bring this down just a little bit. These I feel like are a little bit more whimsical. You can play with the heights on these, however you prefer. So I've got my height. I could have even got a little bit more dramatic. My height on the left, leading down to my focal of these groupings. Really the lavender becomes my focal because they really do stand out. And then I've just sort of accented with my Craspedia and a little bit of my greenery. This is an example of the 10 stem bouquet in the subscription. If you have got a 15 or a 20 stem, you can imagine how you might need a larger vase to begin with. And you can see how things can start to move around and group a little differently based on the numbers of stems. Enjoy the beautiful flowers that we have provided you here at Main Street Florist with your subscription. But if you are a forager, now's the time. Lots of people have beautiful zinnias in their yard or hydrangeas that can be added to your bouquet to really fill them out nicely. Always, foraging rules, ask permission before you cut. But just know that that is a great way to add to your bouquet. Also, if you're foraging for greenery, just be careful that you know what you're getting into. Of course, if you're doing like zinnias and hydrangeas, you should be pretty safe. When you start to get into, in our areas, we have got Queen Anne's lace. There's also sort of a false Queen Anne lace that can really make you itchy and burn your skin. So please be careful if that's what you're doing. But I hope you enjoyed your arrangement this month. I look forward to talking to you again next month. And as always, if you have any questions, don't be afraid to drop them in the comments, send us a text, send us an email. We are happy to help. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.